Hi, everyone. Matthew
Hello.
here, co-author of Team Topologies. Hi, Manuel.
Hi, Manuel, also co-author of Team Topologies, interestingly.
Thank you for joining the live stream. I'm just having a little look here. We might have a little bit of difficulty on the LinkedIn, so I'm just going to see if we can get that fixed as just before we start. We'll have to leave that for now. So those folks who are trying to stream on LinkedIn, apologies. We've got the direct live stream off YouTube and StreamYard instead. So anyway, welcome. It's good to be here with folks who are, I guess, primarily in Asia Pacific region. Thanks for joining. It's great to be here celebrating the second edition of this book here, Team Topologies. Original edition was published in 2019, and this one was published 2 days ago on the 23rd of September 2025. And we're here to look through, reflect on what Manuel and I and other people have learned in the last 5 years since the book was published, but then also share with you some details of what's in the second edition and talk to some of the authors of the case studies that are new in the second edition. I think it's worth zooming into the mission though first, right, Manuel? Because I think this is something that we didn't make it explicit in the first edition, and we've kind of made it more explicit in the last few years.
Yeah,
take
it's
us through that.
something that emerged after the book was published, and I believe at the time we had the intention behind the book that it would help make the workplace more humane. And as the ideas got adopted and spread throughout the world, we realized this is really what we should be focusing on as a mission. To make work more humane and more effective for everyone via team topologies, patterns, and principles. So that's now published on the website as well as our mission. So the core operations of team topologies are focusing on moving towards this mission.
I think it's an important thing because there's plenty of approaches to organizing work and people and so on in the world. There's plenty of different ways of doing it, but I think it's important, really important. It was certainly important for us, wasn't it, to look at a set of patterns, to produce a set of patterns and language and terminology and so on, which did something to make organizations, I guess, more humane, like more a nicer place to work, more humane.
I think what's interesting is the combination, right? Because obviously organizations that are looking to adopting team topologies tend to start by, okay, is this going to help us be more productive, reduce delivery time, increase customer satisfaction, all those things that we've seen actually increase in a lot of the case studies, including the new ones in the book. So that tends to be the starting point. But the fact that at the same time, the ideas and the patterns and so on provide teams and people with a feeling that they're more autonomous, that they have a better, a clear purpose, is what makes then the workplace more humane. So the combination is really great to see.
Yeah, exactly. Like it's not a choice between an effective organization and a humane organization. It's that you get the effective organization because it's humane. I think that's the important perspective that we had underlying the first edition of the book. But I think we've emphasized that in the second edition, right? I think in the foreword and in the afterword, we're emphasizing that aspect of what's behind the stuff that we're doing. Okay. What else? We've got some, and as part of that mission, so as part of that mission to make organizations more humane and effective, we've spent the last 5 years developing a whole load of materials and approaches and techniques and loads of stuff. There's an amazing community sort of evolved up around team topologies, which is it's fascinating. It's humbling. It's super to be part of this team topologies community worldwide. Really, there's if you go to community.teamtopologies.com, that's the kind of online version where there's a lot of discussions, but we're talking about something even beyond just that. That's a good place to start. But there's people all the way around the world as practitioners, as partners, all contributing to that, effectively contributing to that mission of making organizations more humane and effective. And we've really been trying to find different ways to help further that mission. I think maybe we should point this out. Maybe again, this is something that's maybe not explicit, but we should make explicit. Manuel and I are not here to make like millions and millions and millions of dollars and then cash out and live on a desert island. Or certainly I'm not. I don't know about you. Have you changed your mind recently? I'm not sure.
Not really.
Like we cancelled, we killed the certification really early, right? Maybe we should just, maybe we can like talk about.
Yeah, that was a very intentional approach not to go down the certification route, because both of us feel like it tends to just get things, the idea is a little bit misunderstood, or people thinking, oh, because I have a certification that means I now have a job as a team topology
Exactly.
something. While this approach is really about evolving the organization, making it more effective, more humane, as we said. So the certification is not really helpful in this context.
I think we put this page live. I looked in the archive like Wayback Machine thing, and I think we put this page live in 2020. So it was like a few months after the book was published. We decided like we're not going to go down that certification circus route. It's a perfectly valid way of making money. Like you can make millions and millions doing particularly IT certification, but we decided to take ourselves out of that. So the certification is not found effectively. You can't become a team topology certified anything. And to some people that might sound strange, but we're not. The mission is genuinely focused on like making organizations more humane and effective. We're not out here. I mean, we need to make a living, but we're not here to make like millions and millions of dollars and then sell it to some great big corporation. So I suppose that's worth emphasizing.
I mean, that said, if you do have millions and millions you want to give
to
away,
take it,
we'll take it, but it's not the end goal why we're here.
Exactly. And there's actually some sponsorship opportunities which we'll talk about a little bit later. But we wanted to zoom into three particular like packaged offerings that help with that mission, making organizations more humane and more effective. And let's just have a look at these now. The first thing is some leadership cohorts. So where's my slide that talks about this? Here, this one. So yeah, the first thing, we're preparing some leadership cohort sessions with me and Manuel. So Matthew and Manuel, the co-authors, will be there leading these cohort sessions. We'll have different time slots. Just like today, we've got multiple different time slots for different regions. We'll run multiple time slots for different people in different parts of the world. So very small groups. We're thinking probably about 8 people per cohort. Make it really small, really tight, really focused. Build some trust between that group, and run these over 4 weeks. So run one cohort a month. It might be a little bit different to that, but the aim being that group of leaders can then learn very quickly how to lead with clarity, particularly around team topologies, avoid some common pitfalls, accelerate your transformation initiatives, and get the most out of the case studies that we'll look at soon here in the second edition of the Team Topologies book, like examples from real organizations have done this stuff, have done it well, and effectively that helps you become a better leader in this space in the context of like using the Team Topologies ideas. So we're pretty excited about that, right? And that's me and you coming back together to do this stuff like directly online with leaders from around the world. I think it's worth pointing out that,
I think it's worth pointing out that, 'cause, I mean, that said, if you do have millions and millions you want to give away, we'll take it, but it's not the end goal why we're here. I believe part of the success of team topologies is the fact that the principles and patterns are fairly easy to grasp and understand how we can use this to improve things. But at the same time, is also, and that was intentional. It's really, at the principles and patterns level. It's not. At least I don't see it as a prescriptive framework that tells you, do this and do that. Is like, here are some
Mm.
building blocks, and that means obviously there's a lot of different paths and there's a lot of nuance in how you might be applying the ideas. And that's one of the reasons for this cohort, is because we've seen that leaders often kind of struggle a little bit in, how do I get started, how do I know we're going the right direction. And now that we have this 10 new case studies in the second edition of the book, those provide some insights on what other companies have done well. But it's still always a unique journey for each organization. So the cohort is effectively trying to help leaders in that situation.
Yeah, exactly, and almost certainly one of the main one of the early things that will probably be there in those cohort sessions is advice and guidance around avoiding taking a kind of cookie cutter or template approach to adopting team topologies. It's not prescriptive. There's some principles to learn and interpret, which for some people is more of a challenge. People want a step by step, do this then do that guide, which for modern organizations and business context doesn't really work very well, I don't think, unless it's very simple. So we'll see. If you're interested at all in learning more about the cohorts, or even shaping how those cohort sessions work, because we've still got options to change kind of the detail, head to teamtopologies.com/cohorts, fill in the details, and we'll get back to you once we know what's going, or get back to you with if you've got some suggestions, that would be great to hear as well. But we're hoping to launch that this year, 2025. If it might be early 2026 by the time it comes around, so we'll see. So that's the first thing. The second thing that I wanted to talk about is the Success Toolkit. So, as we know, it's like 5 years since the Team Topologies book was published. In that time, there have been quite a large number of, there's an increasing number of tool providers, particularly like software tool providers, that are using the Team Topologies ideas explicitly and kind of encoding the principles and crucially making it easier to scale. So I'll share some of the early toolkit partners that we've got in a second. But like based on some of the work that we've done with customers over the last 5 years, we'd run some sessions. For example, we're running some sessions with a big financial institution in based in the UK, but it's got global reach. And they said to us, right, these sessions are, so we were running some workshop sessions and some kind of consulting sessions and so on. And they said, these workshop sessions are great, really love it. This is really going to work. This is what we need. How's it going to scale? And the Team Topologies core operation is very small. How do we scale that? Well, part of the answer, I think, is via a series of well-chosen, like a curated set of tools that can actually help apply those ideas and spread them out across the organization very effectively. And that's what we've come up with. We've carefully selected a set of tools, kind of SaaS cloud-based tools, that explicitly implement some of the ideas of Team Topologies that help to move organizations in a particular direction. And so we've got things, by adopting this toolkit or elements of the toolkit, then you can end up rapidly upskilling entire departments, plan and execute organizational changes, assess and remediate problems with team cognitive load, like adopt a flow-centric approach to risk and compliance, detect and remediate poor boundaries, so team boundaries, architectural boundaries, and so on, and identify flow bottlenecks at scale. These are the 6 key things, key challenges that came up time and time again over the last 5 years from organizations that we've been talking to and working with. We're pretty excited about that because, again, it connects to the mission. we try and make organizations more effective and more humane. These tools that we select as part of this toolkit, we believe, well, we've seen them actually helping to achieve those outcomes, and we believe like by bundling them together as part of the toolkit, then organizations can go, I've now got a useful set of tools to implement the ideas and team topologies, if you like, or to amplify them and make them more effective at scale. I was going to share the website, right? Just give me a second. I'll do that.
Yeah. So
Cover me
maybe I can.
while I do that.
Yeah. I don't have any jokes prepared. Sorry, but so one of the things obviously we've done. I think we started it in 2021 was the Team Topologies Academy, where we felt the need to a lot of people, a lot of organizations. Not everyone's going to read the book. Typically, leadership and people who are more more involved tend to read the book, and they want to get the key ideas to the rest of the organization so that people understand why are we changing things. If that's the case, why are we trying to adopt a more flow centric approach, more streamlined teams and all these things. So we created the Team Topologies Academy, which is effectively video based training, curated and initially created by us as the authors, me and Matthew. And then we started bringing in also other authors that have different perspectives, people like Nick Tune, Eduardo Silva, Casper Gunia, who have, for example, a lot of experience from domain-driven design, different approaches, because we believe, and we'll talk about this later again, in the power of combining team topologies with other complementary approaches or related approaches. So it's a fairly standard offering, video-based training. We are going to work on providing more kind of dynamic, let's say, approach where teams can actually follow a learning path and sort of customize to where they are today. So if you're interested, keep an eye out for that as well.
So that was the Team Topologies Academy ended up being effectively the starting tool for the toolkit. Just mention a few of the other toolkit partners right now. COSLI is about automating governance and accelerating delivery and remaining compliant. We've known the people behind COSLI for quite some time. Way back to the early days of DevOps topologies, which is kind of how team topology emerged from the kind of DevOps movement. So we've known them for quite a while. Amazing platform, really great set of principles that work extremely well with the team topologies approach, because it's coming from the same place. It's about empowering teams to be effective and so on. So that's worth having a look at if you need to effectively accelerate delivery whilst being compliant. So bringing in those team topology principles. There's also temperature. That's you've been driving that in the last few years, haven't you, Manuel, as well?
Yes. So temperature is I would say, community-driven SaaS offering for assessing and managing cognitive load in teams. That, I mean, since the book was published, I would say that was the number one question: is how do we assess cognitive load on teams? And so for some time, our answer was essentially, well, talk to the teams and figure out what's overloading them. We've since then done a lot of work with a scientific approach with someone called with Dr. Laura Weiss. She's a PhD in psychology, and she was able to bring in all the knowledge that exists today around cognitive load and create an assessment model and a survey that really digs into many different aspects of why cognitive load might be high in teams. So what we have now is with temperature, which is kind of the product that uses that model that she defined together with us. So the product actually allows teams to look at a broad spectrum of drivers of cognitive load, not just often technical teams tend to complain, and often with good reason, about the tools are not right, and the processes are maybe too bureaucratic and all these things. But the model actually looks across 4 dimensions and about 25 different factors that might be driving cognitive load up in teams. So it helps dive into what exactly is causing cognitive load in a particular team, and it also helps look across multiple teams. What are we seeing as common factors for high cognitive load, right? Because some issues are obviously more organizational, while other issues might be at the team level. So if you're interested, there's a free version for community up to 25 teams, and we're always looking for feedback as well.
I think it's probably fair to say the some of the detail of how we described kind of cognitive load and the concepts around it, some of the detail in the book, maybe could be more refined. The way in which we talk about it perhaps today would be a bit more refined. But temperature is the tool which brings in that level of refinement to assessing it and so on at scale, right? And I think there's actually a lot of work happening in the like academic and research community around cognitive load right now. So you posted the other day, like posted a new research paper that's like reframing some things a bit. So I think over the next 3 years we'll probably update based on the learning from that research and from say temperature and the model there. We'll probably in the next book that we write, I'm not committing us to that, but I'm sure we will do. But there'll probably be a more refined approach to cognitive load and mental load in general, and how we think about that in terms of like flow and responsibility and stewardship and stuff like that.
Yeah, and obviously there's the world keeps moving, and there's new kind of factors influencing cognitive load on teams. And these days, one of them is obviously how does artificial intelligence impact cognitive load on teams, which we can come back to towards the end of the session. But essentially, you can expect that it's going to help in some ways, and it might actually increase cognitive load in other ways. So that's kind of our next focus of our research, is to look at this aspects and then integrate what we find into the existing model and the product.
I mean, that's a kind of really important point about the whole team topologies approach, because we've got this focus on kind of cognitive load or mental load or something in humans plus value flow. The combination of those two core things in team topologies then helps us navigate a whole bunch of like technical changes and business changes and ways of working changes for the foreseeable future. I mean, that's maybe a topic for another conversation, but I think it's certainly a theme inside the second edition. In the additional material, we've really zoomed into the importance of using cognitive load as a design principle, right?
Yep.
Feels really important. The final toolkit partner that we've got at the moment, we are talking to a couple of other toolkit partners. So if you're actually from a SaaS or you know of a particular tool that is really great in this space, then that we'd be interested to know. We're expecting to have maybe 7, 8 tools in the toolkit eventually by the middle of 2026. Looking at some other dimensions, we're talking to a few other organizations. So there's still some opportunity to get into the toolkit, but it'll soon be substantially complete, if you like. The fourth tool right now in the toolkit is Teamform, which provides like a real-time organization-wide view of teams inside the organization. And those folks, some of them might be on the comments on the live stream right now because they're based in Australia and New Zealand. So hi, if you're on the live stream right now, it was great to meet you. Great to meet some of you out when I was in Australia and New Zealand a few months ago. But they've done some great work, particularly in embedding the team topologies principles and ideas into their tool to make it even like kind of a visual approach inside Miro and inside their own tool to be able to model things out, and then so give options for reshaping the organization, but with some data behind it. So it's been amazing to work with them over the last few years and see the ideas come to life in ways that couldn't really predict, but they're bringing their expertise to blending it with the team topologies ideas. So that's been great to see that.
It's worth mentioning the Success Toolkit is not, let's say, an integrated set of tools, is a set of tools that help us address and get insights and data to make better decisions when we're trying to follow the principles and the focus on flow and cognitive load management from team topologies, right? So it's not a integrated toolkit, but it's a set of tools that help us deal and get more insights to make better decisions.
The tools are nicely decoupled, right? Important team topology
Yes.
principles. Okay, right. What else should we talk about?
I
The
think
final thing was
yep.
Go for it. Yeah.
Maybe just to say the final thing we wanted to mention is the book bulk purchases, and then we'll get into the kind of what's new in the second edition.
Yeah, exactly. So like if so we've had requests from quite a few organizations over the last few years for like bulk purchases of books. So like they want to buy a box of 50 or 200 or 500 or what have you. So we've now arranged for that to be possible, starting with the second edition. So if you're running a conference, for example, or you're running some kind of big transformation catalyst event, and actually you want to give a copy of the book to like everyone in the department or every department manager or whatever it is, or every attendee at your conference, then you can just contact us and we'll sort out all the details basically. So all you need to do is tell us how many you need, pay the money, and we'll sort out all the rest for you. So just go to teamtopologies.com/book and you follow the link there. The order process will improve a little bit over the next few weeks, but right now that's something that we can do for you. And we're about to ship the first box, the first bulk box, to the first customer who wants that option. What we found basically, if you go to like an online bookstore, whether it's Amazon or whatever it is, Barnes and Noble, then they might have 13 copies or 22 copies, but they don't have like 100 to ship. They just don't store that many in one particular warehouse for one particular like geography or what have you. So we can sort all that out for you if that's useful.
Also, we found that it's some weird situations in some markets. Like for example, in Brazil, the second edition is coming out on Amazon at like $64 the book, which is expensive for Europe and US, let alone for Brazil. And so it's a way to also help organizations that want to do a bulk purchase to get a price closer to what it should be when the external forces out of our control are driving prices up.
Yep. So okay, we've got so second edition. It looks very similar to the first, but it does say second edition. I'm going to put it on the video here. It's a second edition there, nice in red, and it's got a purple border. So that's the second edition book.
There's some nuance difference.
Oh yeah, the subtitle. The subtitle is now organizing business and technology for fast flow value. Originally, we talked about organizing business and technology teams for fast flow. And the important difference there, because what we've realized is the ideas in team topology is not just about teams, although it has team as the first word of the title. It's actually the team, the topologies of teams is kind of a route into thinking about how we organize capabilities more generally. So it's about organizing business and technology together. And crucially, when we talk about fast flow, it's really a fast flow value. That's what we're getting to. And a lot of it turns out a lot of the patterns and things are counterintuitive, which is why I think it's had such a big impact, because we're actually shining a spotlight on the things that are often counterintuitive, not obvious, and giving them names and giving them ways of like navigating that space. We've got 10 case studies from all continents apart from Antarctica. I love this image here. So there we are. That's where the case studies are from. The penguins were too busy to give us a case study. Sorry about that. But we've got there's a heavy bias towards Europe, which is not surprising because Manuel and I are both based in Europe. But we've got representation from a good spread from around the world, basically. We'll be diving into some of the details a little bit later. Just before we, in a minute, Manuel and I are going to go through kind of what we've, some of the outcomes that have been apparent from adopting team topologies in the last, over the last 5 years. We'll look at that in a minute. Just before we do, just a little thank you to sponsor for this launch event. So Complux is one of our team topologies partners. It's actually a consultancy that I founded and run. And with Complux, we can achieve millions in annual savings, rapid ROI, and faster time to value. Like, we help organizations to navigate this kind of transformation. We offer assessments and expert sense checks. We offer workshops and training. We offer leadership right-hand support. And then we drive transformations too. And Complux was instrumental in kind of seeding or catalyzing the transformations in 2 of the case studies in the Team Topologies book. So EBSCO and Telenet, we were there at the very beginning to help to seed that transformation. We didn't do all the work. Clearly, people inside those organizations did a huge amount of work, but we were there to seed and catalyze the change and bring some thinking and clarity and things around those. So get in touch, compluxhq.com, if you're looking for help with that. Now, this is clearly an example of the kind of sponsorship I mentioned a little bit before. So if you'd like to get involved in sponsoring Team Topologies events, in content and other materials, then get in touch. teamtopologies.com/contact will get you to the right place. We've got a hugely highly engaged audience. Like, for those of you that know about newsletters and things like that, the open rate is something like 45%. The click-through rate is something like 5 to 8%, which is like, doesn't sound a lot. It's basically unheard of in the industry. It basically means that the audience that we've got is very engaged, very interested. Now, like I said before, we're here on a mission. We're not here to like monetize content or spam our audience with huge amount of irrelevant things. We're very picky. We're going to choose carefully which sponsors get involved and the nature of the messaging that goes out from sponsors. So we've been trialing that over the last 6 months, and we've got the right kind of balance in place now. So we're happy that that's something that our audience wants to know from the kind of sponsorship messages that are coming through. If you're interested, please get in touch, teamtopologies.com/contact, and we'll have a useful conversation. All right, let's talk about some outcomes. It's worth just kind of maybe resetting slightly, and trying to work out like what does the Team Topologies approach actually bring. This and this is a question I've been trying to reflect on particularly in the last year. And I came up with, in fact, I'm going to put this as a little banner on the see if this works as a banner. It might not work. Let's have a look. Create a banner. I'll scroll it. Here we go. Let's try this. It may or may not work. Show it. So, given the need for ongoing stewardship of long-lived services, how can we realistically arrange the flow of value to be rapid, safe, and sustainable? That's my perspective on what Team Topologies is bringing. There's a few things in here, right? So, ongoing stewardship of long-lived services. We're not just building random stuff and then forgetting about it. We're thinking about that ongoing stewardship. And the services are long-lived. The value is long-lived. There are contexts where you're just doing a single thing and then you're forgetting about it. You're building one thing, it's a one-shot stuff, and you don't need to involve it anymore. But most businesses and organizations and public sector organizations, they've got ongoing value that they need to deliver. And that's the context for which like Team Topologies makes sense. The stewardship there is important. We're thinking about the changes we're making today. We're thinking about the way in which we're making those changes, what kind of impact that has on our ability to do stuff tomorrow. We're not just squeezing in new stuff and forgetting about how that affects our ability to make changes later on. We're really shaping this stuff in a way which keeps it healthy.
One
But
interesting,
then, yeah, go for it.
yeah, one interesting aspect today of this is that as we see the increase in the use of artificial intelligence, people might think, well, why do we need stewardship? We can just regenerate stuff and use all this great tools, but like Matthew said, you still need to think about what is the value we're providing to the customers. How do we ensure that that value is maintained? Because for most big organizations, the innovation is, obviously you have different horizons, if you like, and you're looking at how do we innovate, how do we create new offerings, but the business is sustained by the existing offerings, the existing services. And so while AI can help us, reduce drastically how long it might take to get something new out the door and experiment, and that's all great. But we still need to think about, first of all, at which kind of stage of maturity are the services that we're providing and the offerings. If we have something that's mature and it's revenue generating, that we need to make sure it's running and evolving as well in a sustainable and a safe way, then we need that kind of stewardship. And then for new offerings that we might be creating, we need to figure out when is this reach the maturity level where it's no longer something we can kind of throw away or rebuild. It's something that we need to keep as a kind of a new stream that needs stewardship as well. It's not just something we're experimenting, but it's actually now something which is part of our portfolio of revenue generating services. So I think it's even more important today rather than the opposite to have this view.
Yeah, exactly. And it frames a huge amount when we in the Teams Boys book, in the original 2019 book, we talked about ownership, like teams owning given services. Now I've stopped using that phrase really. We talk about stewardship instead, and we signal that in the forward and afterward in the second edition, like the sense of looking after something, like and caring about the kind of health of that thing, the viability of that thing. So there's a sense in which we're not just optimizing for the next month or a few weeks or quarter or something. We're thinking about something that's way more long term. Because if you think about it, the kind of services that keep the economies going, insurance, mortgage, pension, banking, government citizen services, all of these things, they are going to be, you want them to be going for the foreseeable future. Okay, if you're ordering a pizza or something and you don't necessarily care about whether that service is going to be around next week, you'll just order from another place. So maybe slightly different. But even within that, as you said, even within that pizza company, they still want people to order from them on an ongoing basis. They don't want like some massive change to their systems to mean that people suddenly can't order and then they lose confidence in the company. They want that confidence to remain. So there's very much a sense in which there's a I think part of this project to product shift that we're seeing across the industry is a realization that we can't pretend that things are just a series of individual discrete things that we can just do and get out the door and forget about, because that just leaves so much kind of awkwardness and pain and difficulty and burnout and all the rest of it. So actually taking the time to steward things, to be good stewards of what we're doing and have the empowerment to make decisions that help to steward things in a viable way is a key part of success. Now, you can choose to ignore all that and just go ahead and pretend that you can just do work in a way which doesn't care about the future, and it potentially is a viable business decision. But if you do want to care about the viability of these services on an ongoing basis, then team topologies becomes a really useful approach for that.
Yeah. And
I think
even
that's my perspective now.
I think forward-thinking organizations are going a step beyond that and moving then from product to value stream orientation. And there are some examples in the second edition, like Telenet, for example, where obviously you have products as the vehicle to provide your offerings to your customers. But if you organize around your value streams, then you're probably going to be able to make better decisions in terms of, okay, which products should we need to invest on, which maybe we need to discontinue, how can we leverage artificial intelligence and other technical innovation to actually maybe create a better new product that replaces an old one, but it's still providing the same value or increased value over what we had. So I think that's really my mind kind of the next frontier for organizations to, like you're saying, that actually understand the complexity of the world we live in and how quickly things are changing, and have that ability to focus at the value stream level, um, and obviously have products, but remove a little bit that kind of attachment to products, which has some, I've seen in some organizations, some kind of, I would say, a little pernicious side effects where individual people attach their own self-worth to their specific role in the product. Like, I'm the product manager or I'm the product X, and that tends to make it more difficult to have better discussions about what is the value of the product. Should we continue this product, or should we, I don't know, split it, or should we replace it or something like that? So it's cool, very interesting to see really good examples like Telenet comes to mind,
Yeah.
where they really reorganized around value streams, and then you have the products inside, if you like.
Yeah. Let's get rid of that ticker. Looks like something off a financial news program, right, on the TV. Turn it off.
You would have the ticker with the
Exactly. So what does Teams Body? What's inside Teams Bodies? We've got different types of team, different team interactions. We've got heuristics for finding good boundaries for flow. We've got the idea of long-lived stewardship. It touches on the kind of organizational architecture, but also systems architecture for value flow. We've got patterns for evolution. There's a whole bunch of these kind of things that come together. I think it's fair to say that a lot of people who have read the first edition of the book only focus on the team types, which is just the tiny, tiny slice of the rest of the Teams Body stuff. And to be honest, it might lead to some confusion. It's really valuable to actually really try and understand all of the different dimensions in there. Otherwise, you're just getting a very surface level understanding of Teams Bodies. And there's probably work that you and I and our community and core team can do to actually emphasize more the multiple different dimensions that are involved and that are needed to have success in this space. I guess that's what we'll do in the cohort learning, but other things too.
I've definitely seen this sort of anti-pattern, if you like, and it's something we mentioned in the new forward in the second edition, which is people who actually paid attention only to the team types and then are trying to apply these ideas. There is some criticism that, okay, you're trying to put teams in these boxes, the blue box and the yellow box and the purple box, and that's really not the purpose, to label or box teams and sort of say you cannot do this or you cannot do that. It's actually just to help teams get a better sense of what is their purpose, what are we here to do in terms of helping the organization and helping our customers, and also being able to have more, the teams themselves should get to a point where they have more, let's say, more clarity on what they should not be doing. Like, okay, if we're trying to focus on some kind of stream for our end customers, we should not be doing or spending a lot of time on internal tooling for other teams. It doesn't mean it's not needed, but maybe that's something we need to look at. Is there another team in a more kind of platform approach that can take care of those internal things, right? So it's for teams individual as well as the team of teams to have better clarity and purpose. I always remember what Matthew, you said several years ago of the team types acting as kind of magnets for certain behavior and purpose. And I think that's a really good way to see it. It's not that we want to, put people in a box or teams in this box and, you cannot get out of the box. That wouldn't, make much sense to me.
Yeah, but it's
But
about helping the organization to focus using those team types as kind of archetypes, if you like, to help focus on value, to help focus on mission, and doing just enough of the right things to achieve that mission. Turns out that way of thinking is like completely alien to loads and loads of people in lots and lots of different organizations. But there's the opportunity of really having a hugely transformational effect on the organization if we apply the team topologies and related ideas in a coherent way. Because some of the outcomes that we've seen from over the last 5 years have been that there's been some significant outcomes, right? So like 20 to 30% revenue growth in some cases, 30 to 50% faster delivery and fewer incidents, and in some cases like 100% increase in team happiness, like a substantial turnaround in how happy that teams are reporting themselves after using team topologies as a way to change how they work.
Essentially, we have not seen any case where adopting these ideas in a reasonable way, at least, did not result in teams feeling more engaged and with clear purpose and happier at the end of the day. So that's really, for me personally, that's really one of the most amazing outcome from all this.
Yep. Just some examples. If you speak to the next, I think it's next two for you to speak to, and then I'll do the two after that.
Sure. So Adidas is a really interesting case where they essentially they've been on a journey for several years. There's some really great talks especially from Fernando Cornago, who is the VP of their platform engineering group inside Adidas, which reports directly to CTO, I believe. And they've been on this journey around value stream orientation, platform engineering, all of this good stuff for many years. And Fernando has given many talks at the DevOps Enterprise Summit, which is now called the Enterprise Technology Leadership Summit. But essentially, they use team topologies. They were already on the journey, but it gave them the vocabulary to talk about some of the things they were already doing, platform focus, platform as an internal product, and all these things. So some of the results, particularly of the platform engineering group, includes, for example, with the data platform that they created, they were able to achieve €500,000 savings per year, which obviously for a company like Adidas is one kind of one piece of the puzzle, right? But it's one example where actually focusing on platform as a product around data actually helped the savings. They were able to, again, with the platform, free up capacity in the product teams to actually focus on the customers, focus on delivering more value by using the platform, which is really this self-service, customer-focused approach. But this is like a small sample of all the amazing things they've done at Adidas.
This is for me, right? So EBSCO, we'll look in more detail in the EMEA live stream at EBSCO, but they were having some difficulty delivering stuff at scale. They'd been using scaled agile frameworks, SAFe, for a while, but that seemed to be they seemed to have got to the point where that was no longer really helping so much. And we after using adopting some of the key team topologies principles and ways of thinking about organizing and so on, we're able to effect some substantial change. 20% decrease in cycle time, 26% decrease in cycle time. So in other words, getting things out the door more quickly. And then they've achieved an ongoing $9.1 million US savings. And so there's a short time to ROI effectively. And this is quite a large organization. There's many teams in there. That's in the information search and retrieval space. KFC is a food retailer in different parts of the world. This is the UK branch, isn't it, Manuel?
Yes, so specifically UK and Ireland. And they looked into the team topologies ideas around the time of the pandemic. So it was a combination of this urgent need to increase their digital reach, right? With getting teams to work in a more streamlined way with less dependencies, and it was really interesting to see the case study where even sometimes you make changes that are fairly small and you get a huge impact just by getting teams to be aligned to the value streams and be more cross-functional, because there is a huge tendency in our industry to sort of, in my view, and this might be over or sound over critical, but that sometimes we take the easy route when we're trying to organize the work and organize the teams and say, well, you take this component, you take this, or in the case of KFC, and like Matthew said earlier, things that seem intuitive or seem reasonable turn out that counterintuitive they are not so helpful. So in the case of KFC, and I've seen this in many organizations, so it's not particular to them, they had organized their technology teams around their channels. So you had the mobile team, and you had the web team, and you had a kiosk, the kiosk in the restaurant team. And that's kind of seems like this is the natural way to split up the work. But when you look at the actual flow, what happens is this creates a lot of dependencies, because when you're changing your offering, you're not changing just on the web, or you're not changing just on the mobile. It's typically across all the channels, or most of the channels, where you need to make changes. And so they were in this situation where the flow of changes was very slow, a lot of dependencies. So um, even just the initial changes of, okay, let's have teams that are aligned to the actual services that we're providing to the customers, and then figure out how can we help those teams make changes across multiple channels in an easy way. And that's where you need to maybe add some platform services, you need to have some enabling work, some training, and so on. But that provided a huge benefit for KFC, just those, even those initial changes. And you can see, like, reducing cycle time by 1/3 is not as easy as it may sound. It typically requires removing a lot of handovers, a lot of blocking dependencies between teams, um, reskilling teams as well. And on the business side, they got to a growth of from 20% to 65% increase in the, let's say, participation of the digital sales in the overall sales of KFC UK Ireland. So really interesting case study.
And then Yasir is an everything app from North Africa, right?
Yeah, they act mostly in the North African market, but they've been expanding a lot over the years, and essentially startup of around 50 people in tech, and they grew to, I believe, around 400 people in less than 3 years. And this is something we also see often, this kind of hyper growth, where a startup that is, or small scale up that is doing quite well, and suddenly things seem to stale and to take much longer than they used to. There's a lack of trust, a lack of understanding what are we even doing as we're growing, right? We have maybe funding, we have the money, we have the people, but somehow we're delivering less than when we were a small company. And so the main thing that or a really amazing thing I found in their case study, besides the metrics, was that they took a very iterative approach to how they evolved the organization. They were doing small changes and doing retrospectives on the organizational change and seeing did this help us, where do we need to go next. And then the results just speak to this approach of actually figuring out how do we empower teams, how we get teams to be able to deliver more autonomously with providing value to our customers. And the kind of side effect, which is very important, is this employee satisfaction that grew by over 200%, right? While scaling from, just to give you a sense of that scale, from 3 million users to nearly triple the users in a matter of 2-3 years.
Yep. And like you said, like the in the original version of the Team Topologies book, we don't really talk about kind of staff or employee satisfaction exactly, but like that's something that's underneath what we want to see. That mission, if you like, remember from before about making workplaces more humane and effective. Seeing that kind of outcome, the employee satisfaction increasing by such a huge amount, is something that's really important, like, to us. This is the kind of thing we want to like emphasize more in the coming years, right?
Yes.
Okay. So let's have a look what's new in the second edition. We've actually covered some of these reflections, to be honest, already. I'll just have a look and see if there's anything else we want to actually cover. We've talked about a lot of this stuff about Team Topologies. Yeah, we've made some of the Team Topologies principles more explicit, I think, haven't we? Like things like the humane aspects, things like empowering teams, things like that. That we kind of made an assumption back in 2019 when the book was published, but which the assumption turned out to be not as valid as we would have liked. I guess I thought back then, well, of course you'd want to empower teams to have really successful outcomes, and you'd want to deal with cognitive load. It turns out most organizations are not thinking about those things at all, or at least they were not before looking at Team Topologies.
Yeah, I think some of the principles in the first edition were kind of sort of under the surface, and now in the new forward, we just try to make that more explicit, because some organizations are kind of missing those principles, or sometimes the clarity of those principles, and so things get a bit gray, where some people have one focus and other people in the organization have a different focus. So in the new forward, we talk about kind of what we've seen in the last 5-6 years, some of these kind of, if you like, misunderstandings, which, like Matthew said, to some extent our fault as well, of at the time of first edition we didn't realize we need to be more explicit about certain things. And then in terms of, let's say, new things that are mentioned in the forward, again, that sometimes we've learned from looking at case studies, other times are things that we've realized ourselves. You have things like, how do we apply the patterns at different scales? So in particular, for platforms and for enabling approaches, where you can, in my mind, those are applicable at almost any scale. But obviously, if you are in a startup, you're not going to have dedicated teams for enabling and platform work typically, right? If you have 10 to 20 people, though, they are looking at how do we actually make the business work, which is what they should be doing. But the pattern might be there already, where some people are mentoring others, some people are maybe just doing a bit of documentation on how does the infrastructure work, why did we decide for this architecture of our systems, so that others can rely on that as the basis to okay, now we understand why we made these choices, and what are some good approaches. And then you can go all the way to huge organizations where you might need, for example, the enabling approach that we started calling, for certain gaps that you might have in the organization, which are actually organizational capability gaps. You might need an enabling approach that actually requires some kind of more centralized structural enabling department or group, which actually deploys enabling teams to different parts of the organization to help build the capabilities that are missing. Where the
And we'll
capabilities,
look at that in a
can
minute,
be
right?
anything.
We'll look at
Yeah,
that specific example in a minute with Singapore GovTech.
yeah,
Yeah.
and yeah. The last thing also we mentioned the forward is we've talked about as well the power of combining team topologies with other approaches like domain-driven design, which obviously is very focused on understanding, first of all, having a common understanding across business and technology that these are not separate things to run separately, um, but also the focus on what are the domains, what are the core domains, and what's kind of supporting domains, etc. Things like wordly mapping for kind of strategy focus. And there are people like Suzanne who have been doing a lot of work in this domain, and this is very exciting for us as well to see. You might even start with team topologies, but then you need to look at other complementary approaches, and that's where you get kind of superpowers, I would say.
I think some of the comment we've done some material, published some material, particularly around domain-driven design. But there's loads more material we want to publish to identify how team topologies can connect with these other complementary approaches, and then kind of give like a power boost to what you're doing. So that'll be coming out later on 2025 and on an ongoing basis going forward. Like tips and techniques and how to use this technique with team topologies and how we can combine these two things and get some additional outcomes and so on. There's a key thing that's in the second edition around groupings. So groupings of teams. There's two aspects to this. One is that in the book, in the 2019, the first edition, we talked about a platform team. Now, we actually found a Slack message from 2018 when Manuel and I were writing the book saying, oh, we shouldn't call it a platform team because it's not really a team in the same way. And then we kind of, for some reason, it slipped through the gap. We forgot about it, and we talked. The original edition, first edition, talked about platform team. In very small organizations, you might just have one platform team. In most organizations, it's not a team; it's more of a grouping of teams that you can then zoom into. So if you look at this diagram here in the slide, you've got a kind of blue boundary box around some other teams, and a platform, effectively, one way of thinking about it, it's not a piece of technology, it's a grouping of capability. And if you zoom into that grouping of capability, guess what? You've got other types of teams which are stream aligned and platform-ish as well. So we're applying this. We did talk about this in the original book, but we didn't emphasize it in quite the right way, and so it produced some confusion. So generally speaking, now we don't really talk about a platform team as the same type of thing as like a streamlined team or enabling team or a complicated subsystem team. You might have a team that sits inside a platform, but there'll be a grouping of teams that sit inside that platform together. So that's the first thing. And there's an extra segment that we've included that really dives into the detail of what we mean by platform grouping and how to think about platforms and that kind of thing. But there's also a more general thing, which is like a grouping in general, and you might call it a value stream grouping. So that's at the top here. We've got a kind of yellow shaded box around a set of teams. In this particular case, there's two stream alliance teams, but there's like some kind of little platform inside that value stream grouping. That little platform is reducing cognitive load and improving flow in the teams that are using that platform. It doesn't sit somewhere else in the organization. It sits close to that value stream. But this whole idea of groupings is a way of thinking about where capability sits where we manage different kinds of capability inside the organization. But crucially, these groupings are always kind of fractal. You can zoom into them and you can see inside, and you can see that there's different types of team, and you can zoom out and just pretend it's like you don't need to worry about the details in some cases. So it's definitely worth having a look at that in the second edition. It will help to clarify a huge amount of things if you're thinking about organizational design and team and capabilities and things like that. Inside your organization, it's really worth zooming into that whole thing about platform grouping, but also value stream groupings more generally.
Yeah, I would just add one thing also to think about trust, especially for platform groups, where if you centralize platform groupings, um, and you might have some good reasons to do that because there might be some services that are common across the organization, but you should realize then it's going to be harder to build trust across the organization at a certain scale if the platform group is sort of removed from, let's say, the business domain or the business area. So I believe a lot we can do a lot more nuanced decisions around this platform groupings and where they sit, so that we also improve the trust levels and we don't create these barriers or division that if you look back at DevOps, that's basically what we're trying to avoid, this huge division between, well, the platform, or in the old days infrastructure, sits there and they do their own thing, and we products sit here, we do our own thing, right? So it's not a good model.
And there'll be a lot of detail, I think, in that, a lot of nuance in that in the cohort learning. Certainly, based on my experiences, there's a lot that leaders would find valuable in zooming into like placement of capability inside the organization like that. All right, we're zooming towards the case studies. Let's just have a little look at what's ahead. So this is in the afterword. We really emphasize the importance of cognitive load as a design principle and how that actually brings that humane approach, but it also allows us to navigate new technology changes and new business changes, new regulation changes. It helps us navigate that more easily because we're making it realistic. We're designing using cognitive load as a design principle helps to keep the organization realistic in terms of what it can actually deliver. We've also seen the team topologies patterns being used well outside of technology. So Manuel and I are technologists originally, but people have taken the ideas and used them for managing doctors' practices in the UK. They've used them for designing legal services, nothing to do with technology really, and a whole bunch of other things. So looking forward to using the team topologies patterns well outside of the original technology focus. There's also some material in there about rethinking how we deal with organizations. Like, instead of trying to make a more efficient machine, try to encourage a flourishing ecosystem. And it's quite a big shift in mental approach, which seems to really help. Once we've made that shift, it really seems to help in applying these ideas in a more effective way. And finally, we touch a little bit on AI, particularly generative AI in particular. It's way too early to make any predictions or anything. But what we've seen is that the team topologies principles and patterns, when applied, if you like, in the right way that we intended, with all those different dimensions that we looked at before, then actually this really helps us to navigate particularly generative AI for knowledge work. The team topologies effectively is an approach which works really well for all knowledge work scenarios, and so we're now pretty confident that if we apply these ideas, really well grounded in the proper team topologies, multiple different dimensions, it helps us to address AI in an effective way. We've got an interesting comment here from Kilkenny Kitten number 1. What a great handle! Thank you. So, as an HR practitioner, so people working in people and HR, as an HR practitioner in the tech domain, team topologies has been very useful reference for org design and intentional culture building. Thank you for sharing that. That's really great to hear. If anyone else has got any other perspectives or things you'd like to share, pop them in the chat, and we'll share them here on the stream. And that's really great to hear, because we have spoken to a few other people in the HR sort of people management space as well. I mean, team topologies doesn't resonate with everyone in that space, but it certainly resonates with people who have got a more like humane, people-centered approach to things, so they can see what we're trying to do, and that's something we'll be working on in the next few years as we write our next book, I think, and as we expand out the detail of this material. Okay, right, let's dive into the case studies.
Yep.
So we're focused on APAC in this session, and the first one we'd like to talk about is Singapore GovTech, and particularly what we've characterized it as forward deployed enabling teams. So Singapore GovTech is a department or agency inside the Singapore government, leading the country's digital transformation around the Smart Nation initiative. That's actually incorrect, Manu. It's not. I think it's not 6 million citizens. It's 6 million inhabitants. I think it's 4.5 million citizens. We'll get that changed after this. But creating digital first capabilities across different government branches, and it's an amazing story because using these teams, bodies, principles to help activate better ways of working and new capabilities across multiple different departments in the government. But rather than it be me talking about all this stuff, why don't we actually get one of the authors? So here comes Kevin Link to the stage, and let's have a chat. Hi, Kevin. It's good to see you again.
Hey, Kevin.
Hey, hi, Matthew. Hi, Manu. Good to see you.
Hey, thanks for joining us. It's amazing.
No problem. Yeah. Congratulations on the book launch.
Thank you very much. Well,
Thank you.
Your contribution has been like part of the success, really. Like it was amazing to well, it's great to meet you. Like when was it? June? No, May. We met in May, didn't we?
Yeah.
This year, yeah. It's great to chat through things. But it's such an inspiring story, and you know you've been at this stuff for a number of years, it's almost like a beacon approach for government across the world, effectively. Governments in different parts of the world that can look to your example as a way of really activating substantial, actually quite rapid change in a sector which traditionally has moved quite slowly. And I think it must be, I mean, you tell me, right? But it must feel, does it feel good to be leading the way in this space in the public sector?
Yeah. And I think it's really exciting to talk about this, and maybe in a way Singapore is good, right? It's neither too big a country and neither is it too small, right? Because it does have all the government branches serving in needs and has an international commerce country, right? So it does have this international aspect towards running government in Singapore. And it's quite amazing to be able to do this within a very unified framework. So yeah, it's really exciting to be able to apply what I've been practicing, right, from a platform engineering perspective, and to overlay this with some of the team topologies concept. And this has been a great help in that sense. And sometimes some of this was almost, as described to you when we met, right, is almost implicit, right? It's we didn't consciously think that we're applying it, but then when we look at it and review it, right, it makes a lot of sense. This is exactly what we're doing, and it gives us this refinement. It's almost like how people take MBA studies, right, after a few years of work, and they finally consolidate and solidify this knowledge to be able to apply it more consciously and effectively.
Exactly. You using the language, exactly. I mean, I've actually already been talking about the way that you've done this, kind of forward, what you call like the forward deployment of capability out into the different agencies. Yeah, it might be worth it just talking through that just briefly in a second. But I mean, I've already been talking to people in UK government in particular, and in a couple of other conversations with other governments in different parts of the world. I've been already talking about this. I've been saying you have to get a copy of the second edition, because like the case study from Kevin and his colleagues is effectively, it's not a blueprint, but it's like it's a really super inspirational way of going about exactly this, the kind of capability uplift that is really, really needed, certainly in the UK, but I also know in other governments worldwide. So like, I think you've met some of the people that I know in the UK government recently. I think you've been on some calls with them, but it's great to be able to like have that catalyst effect across
And
the public sector.
I just wanted to add, like, for me, when I read the case study, I was really impressed at how you went about dealing with issues that are very common across any government agencies. We've seen time and time again, like, it's not an easy environment where you have, different agencies. They are not, they're not for profit. Obviously, these are government agencies. They have their own objectives, often very influenced by political, leadership, and trying to bring about change in those agencies, even if at the technical level, is not easy, because you're facing all these different challenges and incentives effectively that are very different across these agencies. And so I was really amazed by how you thought about, okay, then we need this, forward deployed approach. We need to build and show the value internally in your own agency before you can go out and bring it to the rest of the agencies. But this ability to essentially kind of, I would say, almost customize to different agencies to help them without creating or falling into kind of the, I would say, the political trap, or the incentives trap, where we're not incentivized to use the thing that you're offering us, so we're going to create antibodies. And you, I believe, were able to achieve the opposite. You were able to reach those other agencies and show how you can help them. I'm sure there's been challenges there, but I just wanted to say that was really impressive.
Yeah, thank you. I think there were a few factors that were very helpful for us, right? And in particularly, I can speak to a lot of success in the cloud journey, right? Where we were able to move 70%, and in fact, it's now up to 80-ish percent, right? Of the eligible workloads that were hosted on-premise onto the cloud. And a few things work for us, because I think at the top, there's this political willpower, right? To say that we are going to do this. And it was mandated to the ministers and all this, and it passed down to the civil service, to the public officers. So I think that was very, very helpful for us to have that top policy driver, right? Then across it, I think what was also very intuitive and useful for us was that we set up a broad level strategy, and it's by no means like a complete strategy, but we say that this is our pathway to take up cloud, right? So you have this notion of doing a lift and shift. You have this notion of doing moving to the SaaS if you are not going to the commercial cloud. And you have this thing about redeveloping, and you have this thing about re-platform. And in fact, we have a nice way of saying right? So it's like a re-hosting for the lift and shift, re-platform for what I just said, redevelopment, and replace it with a SaaS. And I think it's with this framing model, right? Then when we can go out to the agencies, then we can tailor the kind of support that they might need. Because for agencies that are almost at a point they are just rehosting, maybe there's not so much need for them to know so much about what cloud can offer, right? They just need to know the basic EC2, some of the load balancer, storage, and they can go. And then for those that are very interested in redevelopment, thinking about new ways to implement with the cloud, they may be interested in some of the serverless capability, or some of the NoSQL data that's quite popular for heavy load, right? Then I think we can prescribe a consultative advice to them. And this is a very, very huge undertaking, in that, first of all, we need to have a consulting group, or this forward deploy group, right? To be able to engage agency at different capability level, and to be able to engage them effectively. And then after that, work with the largely the partner vendor community, right? To make sure that they prescribe to the same playbook and move forward. And we have been constantly refining this approach over time. So we have learned, like you have already hinted at, right? Well, written has a case study, there's only so much space and words, right? And it seems like everything is quite smooth, but in general, we do face quite a fair bit of challenges. And some agencies have reasons of why they can't do this migration now, because they have to wait for certain policy to change and things like that. And before they build a system, and they rather build a system on that. So we have to talk and discuss with them various approaches. So some of it is technical, but as you all know, in such large-scale transformation, a lot of it is about the people. And having, I almost hope, right, that so this team topologies was applied in a very more technical construct. So we're talking about people who are leading IT teams, engineering groups, and product teams, and things, and so on and so forth, right? But it would have been even more greater with greater effectiveness. We can apply this if we can also grant it at a business context, right? So that even the business stakeholders can be part of this journey. And I think we are looking at opportunities to how we can apply this as well. And
exactly.
maybe you'll hear more from
I'm really looking forward to. I'm looking forward to using the ideas and the patterns in your case study in some of the work that we're doing with, like I said, with UK government, but other governments too. I think I'm super excited because it's like governments around public sectors around the world have needed something like this as a kind of inspiration, we can shine a light on what you've done to act as a way to help catalyze this kind of change around the world. I think so. I'm super excited about being able to use this in that way. So thank you so much, Kevin, for sharing it. It's been great to meet you and work with you, and congratulations again. And hopefully we'll see even more great stuff coming out of Singapore GovTech over the coming years.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Okay, we're just time to look at the second case study from the Asia Pacific region, which is TradeMe, and to talk it through, the two authors. In fact, I'll just take the screen off first so we can actually see everyone. This one. Hi, Catherine and Amir.
Hi, welcome.
Hi.
Hi.
Nice to see you again. Congratulations.
Good to see you again, Amir.
Yeah.
I actually, it was a strange thing, wasn't it? I went to New Zealand in June, and Catherine came to the UK in June, so we actually missed each other because we were going opposite ways around the world. But we got to chat. I mean, it was great to chat about it.
Yeah, for sure.
So this particular one, you zoomed into one specific concept from the Topologies book, which is thinner spyball platform. The idea from Topologies where we're trying to find the smallest set of things that are going to accelerate value flow and reduce cognitive load. And it's really great to read what you'd kind of written and put together, because it was quite clearly inspired by this very specific kind of concept from Topologies, but you really zoomed into those ideas and got some great results off the back of them. Oops, wrong way around. Oops. Just to talk us through though, talk us through your experience of contributing the case study. What did that feel like to be I don't know, reflecting on what you'd done and then sharing that? First it was online, I think, and then in a book form. What did that feel like, and what kind of effect has that had inside your organization? Maybe Catherine first.
Yeah, I can start. It was definitely an interesting process because I wasn't actually around for the very start of TVP. So I had a lot of talking to people, which was really cool, hearing their experiences about how it had changed the way they work. And then, yeah, even now, if people know Team Topologies, I don't think anyone at our company wouldn't have heard of it now, even not just around TVP, but all the other concepts as well. So it's quite good that it's created quite a good common language between everyone. When you're talking about enabling teams or streamline teams, people know what you're talking about straight away. So, yeah.
That's good to hear. What about you, Amir? What about from your perspective? What have you got out of it or seen?
Yeah, so it's interesting because we definitely started with the book back in the time. I think it was just right after COVID lockdowns that we experienced, and I think there were a couple of really good books came out just before that, like Accelerate book and Team Topology book. And then because a whole landscape was changing and we were going through some of the changes in the organization, we really utilized these two books. I always had these questions about is there one specific book that all of these things are documented? Was a right timing. So we really utilized that in order to just shape up our team structure. Having that vocabulary specifically, I think that kind of really helped that, okay, from now on, we're going to call this streamline team, or we're going to call this type of a team a platform team, and the distinctions between them. But like fast forward 2, 3, 4 years later, I think when we started, like I said, maybe we should publish this, we didn't really plan it that way. So we really got inspired by the book, and we just thought, oh, they're talking about this thing, let's just do it. But we really didn't really go line by line with the book. We took the essence and intent of the whole idea of TVP, and we just thought, we have this problem. We keep doing the same thing over and over, but we don't get the result that we want. So maybe let's just use this approach. And then when 3 or 4 years later, we looked back and said, okay, this was the essence of it, like the whole internal open source approach that we had, the fact that we kept it open, the fact that we were very opinionated, kind of all came together as a theme. And I think that's one of the things that I learned that I think we should look at the essence of it rather than just trying to just have a checklist of things and say, oh no, because this is specific literature, specifically says that it needs to be like that. I think that was a good learning for us. Yeah,
I would say
go for it.
Yeah. No, when I read the case study, that was something that struck me as what you just spoke to right now was how you were able to navigate this idea of platform and thinnest viable platform, because I think it's one of the areas where there's more nuance and there's so many ways it can go wrong. And I think you gave the answer because you focused on the intent and not so much, following the book or following whatever is being said, but actually the intent of let's build something that works. It's not going to work for everyone. It's not going to be perfect fit and standardize everything. We're just going to build what works for the teams that need it. But you also left it open to for people to contribute. And also I remember from the case study that as far as I understood, you also left it the possibility that the streamlined teams would do their own solutions when it made sense, when there's a clear business case why they need to do things differently from how the opinionated platform does it. And so I found that you really dealt very well with all this nuance, which is sometimes even not easy to explain internally. Why is this our, let's say, philosophy, right? So that was really cool.
Yeah, exactly.
Magic. So I would love to invite both of you, Catherine and Mitt, onto the live stream, which we will be restarting at some point soon. We had some live stream sessions earlier this year. We've paused them a little bit to get the second edition book out of the way, but we'll be restarting these soon. So if you're up for that, I would love to invite you onto there, and we can talk in more detail about how I've used TVP, but maybe how you're using Team Topologies outside of that at Trade Media. It'd be awesome. So very, very welcome.
It'd be great.
And we'll actually be inviting all of the authors of the second edition case study, so including Kevin and his colleagues from Singapore GovTech. We're inviting those to the live stream over the next few months and into 2026 to get more detail. Thank you both. Great to see you again.
Thank you.
Such a good story that you've pulled together there. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for having us.
So we're going to wrap up.
That's good timing.
And just a quick reminder of a few things that we've covered already. Again, another word from our sponsor, Complux. Don't navigate the transformation alone. Get in touch and have a partner that can help you. And if you're interested in sponsorship opportunities like these, please get in touch. teamtopologies.com/contact will get you to the right place. And we'd love to hear from you and interact with our amazing community of very, very engaged people. We have some cohort learning coming soon. teamtopologies.com/cohorts will get you there. This is for leaders to help you lead with clarity, avoid common pitfalls, and so on. If you're interested, get in touch. We have a success toolkit. Again, that can help you apply the Team Topologies ideas at scale. Find that at success-toolkit. And you can bulk purchase the books as well if you go to teamtopologies.com/book. And we're basically, I think, done. So the call for me, Emmanuel, basically, and all of us working here at Team Topologies, thank you. And let's take humane, effective organizations to the next level with Team Topologies, particularly the second edition with all of the additional material in there. And we look forward to working with you, joining in conversations, helping you succeed over the next few years.
Thank you, everyone, for joining, or if you're watching the recording, it's been a pleasure, and hopefully got some new insights.
Thank you all, and see you soon.
Bye.